Hey everyone, I'm stepping away for 2 weeks, so for this week and next, I'll be re-airing 2 wonderful episodes with dietitian Heather Fiore that first aired back in September. Heather shares her thoughts on having a healthier relationship with food and listening to your body. I'll be back with new content in 2 weeks, but for now, enjoy Heather and her wonderful insights. Are you feeling stuck? Is something holding you back? Are there obstacles in your way? Well, let's smash through those obstacles so that you can live your best life. Hi, I'm Matt Brooks, founder of Matt Brooks Coaching, and I'm fascinated with how people overcome barriers and achieve success. Join me for insights, strategies, and inspiring stories as we explore practical tips and powerful tools to unlock your full potential. This is the Barrier Busting Podcast. Well, welcome back to the Barrier Busting Podcast. This is a part of a series that I'm doing on pivoting, career pivoting, pivoting in life in general. And if you recall, if you've been listening, if you haven't, I did a show on pivoting in general. I did a show on pivoting in your 50s and ageism. And I've had a guest on already who was a school librarian for 20 years, who's now gone into her own small business. I have a couple more guests coming on, and then in a few weeks, I'm going to have a job recruiter coming on for a couple episodes. So I think this is a pretty interesting series. And today I have someone who's, I will admit, I've known a long time. He's a great guy, and he's been through a few interesting pivots, both with his prior business and with his career. And I find his story particularly interesting. My guest today is Alex Castronakis, who is a financial planner for LPL Financial, where he focuses on helping families and small businesses pursue financial balance. For 30 years, Alex owned and operated several small businesses, including Pittsfield Radio, Electronic Entertainment Solutions, and Superior Wireless, until he first transitioned into the insurance business and then ultimately financial planning in 2016, making the move to open his own financial planning business, Shire Wealth Management, LLC, in 2022. You can learn more about him and his business by visiting www.shirewealth.com. That's SHIRE wealth.com. Alex, it's so awesome to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be here, Matt. Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate it because I think you have done some interesting pivoting in your life, and you didn't study how to pivot, so you kind of went about it, right? And you figured it out very well. You were very successful. So we want to pick your brain a little bit. Let's talk first about the 30 years you were owning and operating a business. Tell us first about Pittsfield Radio. What kind of business was it? This is in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, I'm speaking of. And what kind of business was it?
Yeah, so when I went to work with my dad at Pittsfield Radio in 1986 or 7, it was electronics, parts, distribution, and some peripherals that went along with that.
And it was in particularly successful because Pittsfield at the time was where GE was, right? There was a huge business from GE, wasn't there?
Yeah, we did. We sold into GE, and then we sold to anybody that really fixed anything that had to do with electronics, which in that day and time was a pretty big business as well.
I remember the TV repairman and all that. Now we just buy stuff and throw it out when we're done with it, right?
That is true.
I mean, you should see, I live in New Jersey, and we all have these town dumps with recycling centers in them. And there's this big, enormous, I don't know what the hell it is. It's enormous that you put electronics in. And I went down there with a printer that died, and I walked in, and there must have been 300 flat screen televisions in there, right?
Yep, same in our town, and I imagine every other one out there as well. Yeah.
So that was the end of Pittsfield Radio when that age started to come up, right? When we started to build things that we didn't repair, right?
That was a big part of it. And then GE downsized in the Pittsfield area as well, sometime in the 90s, I think. And that we took a big hit at that moment as well.
Yeah. But first, let's go back to the business itself, because I remember you really enjoyed it, right? What was the experience of owning your own business like for you?
It was fun. Wasn't always profitable, but it was a lot of fun and a lot of feel-good moments. We knew all our customers. They all came in, or we went and visited with them, and it was really enjoyable. It was
I
very
remember
fulfilling.
your store was kind of a hangout, right?
Yeah. We made, I don't know how many pots of coffee in a day, and people would just come in. And back when smoking was legal, they'd come in and smoke. And
right.
I inevitably changed that because they were killing me.
Right. But it was kind of like, I remember it. It was kind of like Barbershop. When I saw the movie Barbershop, I was like, oh my God, that's Pittsfield Radio, right?
It was very much Barbershop. No one ever just came in, bought something, and walked out the door. It was always an episode, so to speak, when people came by, and it was great.
That had to be fun, right?
It was a blast.
Yeah. Have so you were in the store all the time, right?
Till I first changed it, yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So at some point, that's what I want to talk about now. At some point, you see the writing on the wall for that type of business. Things were changing, and you begin to think that your business was becoming less viable, right? So
absolutely.
What made you first start thinking this way? And then take us through the progression of your thinking to the point where you decided to make a fundamental change to your business.
Sure. I mean, it's probably going to sound a little bit simple, right? Sales were down, way down, and continuing to decline. So you try to reach for further or more market share, but that was limited as well because it was declining nationwide. When GE downsized, really there was no coming back from that. The population of Pittsfield started to decrease. The repair industry was decreasing. So everything was, really starting to fall apart. And it became very apparent very quickly because your sales are down. Being a business owner, you start to not have any money as well as a result of that.
And were you freaking out at this point?
Not freaking out, but it was pretty uncomfortable. And you face hard choices. You do what most people do: is they're running out of money. You start cutting back in the business and cutting back and this and that. And of course, cutting back still typically leads to less sales, and lower return. Yeah. So we tried promoting things, which worked somewhat, but again, you're promoting, so lower returns. But it was really clear that nationwide, that industry over the next period of time, whether it be 5 years or 10 years or even 15 years, that business, the repair business, was going away at the level we were at. Mm-hmm. The small electronics, the televisions, the audio, the video. We were in the distribution of the antenna business, so people would install antennas. And at that point, cable was paramount, but not in all areas. But then there started to be the introduction of the satellite dish and all these other things. And it just started to erode pretty much every business we were in, quite frankly.
Yeah. So, you're sitting there and you're seeing this right on the wall. I'm sure you're thinking, what the fuck am I going to do now? Right. And right. And so, how did you talk about the process of the wheel spinning in your brain to come up with the next solution, which was a good solution, as I recall. So tell us all about that.
Yeah, it was. So kind of staying with what I knew, which was electronics, I decided to look at a couple different paths within that business, obviously not parts. One of the things that also happened in Pittsfield was a very well-known audio video store that was quite large, mainly audio store, I should say. He decided to call it quits when this downturn happened as well. So I saw a little opportunity there, not to be him,
okay,
but to maybe fill that void a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I looked at a couple different things. Two specifically, I actually looked at the ham radio business as a whole, because although we never sold ham radio equipment, all the parts and pieces we sold did go to a lot of the ham people, because they built their own equipment, they fixed their own equipment, so on and so forth. I quickly hit many roadblocks with that, which were the cost of acquisition, the minimum ordering system, and the yearly sales, the volume that they wanted, were astronomically high for somebody that was really just starting out and, kind of like you're getting out of a flailing business. So it's not like you're cash rich to just go start something new.
Sure.
So it didn't take long to realize that was not the space I could occupy or our business could occupy. So that was when I said, geez, the audio video thing might be kind of neat. Back then it was still kind of stereo, and the start of the home theater was happening, but it was still pretty simplistic back then. So I jumped on that, and I made a bunch of calls and talked to different companies and different people and looked at different brands. And that was a much easier financial transition for us to get going in, and almost natural, because again, we sold all the people that fixed that stuff. And then we had the retail people that would come in, because in the 80s and early 90s, people actually did fix their own stuff as well. Mm-hmm. So we chose that route. And
which was, let me cut you off there to be clear, that was stereo. You started with stereos.
It was very much stereo. Yeah, speakers, amplifiers, cassette decks, CD was out at that point. DVD didn't come out till years later. But yeah, we sold just some components. And then as, that business is very liquid. So as things change, you are changing with them, whether it was every year. Seemed like in the beginning it was every year, and then it turned into every 6 months, and then it turned into every month, and then it turned into every day. But it evolved very quickly. That business grew kind of quickly as it evolved out of the stereo business.
Nice.
When other things came down the road, right?
Okay. I gotta just cut in, because I'm gonna tell the listeners, I've known Alex for so long that he actually gave me my first CD player. I remember it. I had a first CD player. Then I was like, oh shit, now I got to throw out all my records. But it was great. It was awesome. So you moved, you evolved out of stereos into entertainment systems, right? And you were selling them first. Is that right?
Correct. So the Berkshires obviously became, I don't recall which year it was, a very predominant second home area, right? And construction, we had some really big construction booms. And as I was selling, it turned into, hey, can you come hook that up? And, it was, you drive over and you'd hook it up or whatever. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. It also was the start of when the home movie theater, the home theater, really started to blossom, and people started to dedicate a room to a movie theater. And the VCR in the beginning.
You jumped on that, though.
Oh, yeah, we were all over it.
Yeah.
Oh, we were all over it. Yeah. It started with the VCR at a low level. And then I can't recall which year now the DVD player was introduced, somewhere in the 90s or 2000.
I remember walking into Pittsfield Radio one day, a place that was kind of real old school. It always felt like it was out of the 30s, and you're drinking coffee and everybody's smoking. And then one day I walk in and it's completely different, looks completely different. And there's this massive TV screen and like home entertainment area. You really did a huge overhaul, not just the business, but how it looked, how it seemed to people, right?
Yeah, we had to. You're right. It was, the building was dirty and dingy. And,
but dirty and dingy in the best way. I mean, come on.
No,
I love
it. Was great. No, for the business we were in, it was like walking into, what was the Cheers, right? It was like walking into the bar, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it was a fun place, but when you're stop selling resistors, diodes, capacitors, and tubes, and now you're taking real money from people. Right. And we did the floors, we redid the store, we put a ceiling in, and instead of the one that was 14 feet high that was falling on you as it rained and stuff, and things like that, and we did the best we could with the space we had, and that business really evolved, really year over year till it evolved into that age-old saying there, be careful what you wish for because you might get it, which was it started to grow so much that I couldn't really do it anymore. And I sustained some injuries along that ride installing because things were getting bigger and bigger and heavier and heavier. And
so you were doing the installs yourself too?
I was doing them myself. You hired people when you could. Was a very skilled labor field, an unusual skilled labor.
Sure.
And it was also skilled with what you call a high level of care, because you're walking into homes that are whatever, $1 million or $5 or $15 million, and
sure.
you're the last guy in. You're going into the finished home to hang the television or put the speakers in the ceiling or the walls or the control panels.
Yeah.
So it's not a job for everybody, because not everybody remembers to wash their hands, and not everybody is neat when they're doing things. And, you got a brand new, freshly white painted wall, and then someone goes over and puts their hand and leans on it and leaves a, nice black handprint on the wall.
Yeah.
So it was very detail oriented, and they're just, I don't know, today even, I think maybe there's more people skilled in that field, but I still don't think it's robust. I think all those fields, all those blue collar, skilled labor fields are suffering and need help every day. I mean, especially when you look at plumbing, electrical, all of those fields. And this is, I would say, actually a little more specialized. So not breaking the news here, what we're talking about, but when your business grew and now you're having trouble staying with it, plus you're not feeling great, and you need some shoulders fixed, and this is failing and that's failing, and you come to that realization like, what am I going to do the rest of my life? Because probably not doing this.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think so. You suddenly, basically threw out your shoulders doing this. And I mean, it was from a lifelong of, you used to do a lot of karate, other things. And, it finally kicked in, and you had to have your shoulders replaced at a pretty young age, by the way. And so you come to this very sobering moment where you've pivoted your business. It's kicking ass, but you've got to make a change for you, right?
Correct. For longevity purposes of being able to work, yes, there's a serious hurdle now in front of me, because I think a lot of people say, I'll just hire 5 guys, right? There weren't 5 guys to hire.
Right.
That was the issue, right? If I could have just stepped back and stayed management, that would have been a great solution, but that solution wasn't there, unfortunately.
So you're saying really there wasn't the people in the workforce that you could attract?
Correct.
Could do this
at that time,
because it was that specialized. Well, so without getting into what you then pivoted to, because we're going to talk about that after the break. I'm going to take a quick break in a second here, but I'm just curious, because I work with people about how to break through their barriers, and in part of that is also how to handle their difficulties. And when they face a rough spot, when they face an obstacle like this, people handle it in various different ways. How did you handle it psychologically? I mean, here you were, you pivoted this business. It's really doing well, but you physically can't do it anymore, and you can't find people that really you're comfortable hiring to do it. What effect did that have on, without going too deep, what effect did that have on you, and how did you, keep yourself going through that period?
So it's funny. I'm going to bounce back and talk about the original pivot as well as the pivot I'm facing, right? So I think the one I was facing when my body was giving me issues, and you kind of come to this realization, like, probably can't stay in this career at this level anyway. That I got to be honest with you, that wasn't horrible for me. I realized it. I scaled back the installation. I stuck with the service. So you're leaning on the customers you have and maintaining them,
right?
And you maintain them quite at a higher level that way, because you're omitting another portion of the business,
right? And
I kind of rolled with that. I can't remember how long, maybe a year or two, and it was fine. I missed the larger scope of work. But the larger scope of work got so large, I'd actually lost a lot of fun in the work.
Mm-hmm.
When you were doing a $4,000 or $5,000 job, and you could do that maybe a day or maybe 2, that was fulfilling. You went to the house, you met the people, you blah, blah, you just do this, you do that, you go back the next day, tutorial, they love you, you love them, you walk out the door, you shake hands. Well, the 5,000 turned into the 50,000, turned into the 100,000, turned into the 150,000, and it just kept going. And now you're talking a 6-month project, a year project, a 2-year project, and it's all at a higher level, and it's what everybody wishes for. And then most people probably want it still when they get it. Some people probably don't because the responsibility level and the demands just continuously get higher along with it. And when the labor pool wasn't there to support that, that was very difficult. Yeah. The business failing years earlier that led me to that career was mentally harder because the business having no money led to me having no money.
Yeah.
So, that can put you in some odd places.
Well, but also, I correct me if I'm wrong, but there was something personal about Pittsfield Radio to you. I mean, it had been in the family, but also you really had a love for that and that business the way it was, right?
Yeah. And it was, my father was still there, obviously, but it was his. So you try to preserve it, and then come to the realization you cannot preserve it. And your father, who wants to preserve it because it's the only thing he's ever known, and you're trying to break that news to him. And hey, by the way, we're going into another business, because. And but I found that was grueling, and that was mentally challenging. And I don't want to say I would hide, but there were far less things I could do because of financial constraints and just the business failing type of thing. So I'm not going to say you're depressed and hiding in a corner, but it's not comfortable. Yeah. And it's very, very difficult. And you do take it very personal, even though we were keenly aware, had nothing to do with us.
Right.
It was just sheer economics in the marketplace at the time. But you take it exceptionally personal when it's your business.
Yeah.
And that was a difficult time. I mean, no joke. I don't know, anybody that knows me probably doesn't know that, because it wasn't something I walked around and talked to people with and told them. That was a very difficult time.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us, because I know it was a difficult time for you, but I think it's important for people to understand you can face those difficult times and pull through, which you did pretty quickly. You found a really good solution for that business pretty quickly, and it did take off more rapidly than a lot of businesses would. So, you were able to sort of see the writing on the wall, make a turn, make it like a left turn or a right turn, whatever you want to call it, and find a solution. Unfortunately, that solution didn't last forever because of these physical problems, and we are going to talk about those and what your next pivot was right after this quick break.
Feeling overwhelmed? Struggling to find balance in your daily life? At Matt Brooks Coaching, we get it, and we can help. With over 25 years of nonprofit executive experience and an MSW with a clinical focus, Matt Brooks offers personalized coaching designed to help you rise above your challenges and live your best life. Whether you aim to advance your career, enhance your skills, or simply find more clarity and peace, Matt is here to be your partner and ally. Visit mattbrookscoaching.com to book your free discovery session today. Take the first step towards a brighter tomorrow.
Okay, back with Alex. So we just, you revealed to us this, the challenges that you faced in pivoting your business, and then coming to the point where your new pivot was very successful, but it was affecting your health to the point where you couldn't continue. You also were unable to find a qualified labor force to help you with that business. So you had to make a fundamental change. Now you had to essentially shut that business down and do something else. All right. Walk us through your process here. What did you, first of all, what was it that made you suddenly say, I got to do something different now? That's a stupid way to say it because we already know what it is, but was there a specific moment where you just knew?
When you go to bed at night and you roll over and you're in tears because you're in so much pain.
That'll do it.
Can't sleep.
That'll do it.
And you can't sleep because both your shoulders are just trashed.
Okay.
No joke. I say it laughingly now because I can laugh at it as I look back, right?
Sure.
It's kind of comical, but
it wasn't funny at the time, was it?
It was. Oh no, it was excruciating. And then to get up and go to work at some level, you couldn't lift your hands above the height of your arms, above the height of your shoulders. And that just, for me, it was just like, I'm done. Mm-hmm. I mean, I got to tell you, there wasn't a lot of thought. It was like, this has run its course. Even if I take the year, because they both needed to be fixed, they take a year or year and a half off to do it. How can I come back and continue to do what led me where I am? Yeah. Right. I mean, it's not like it stops. You're just going to do it again and again and again.
But of course, you're too young to retire at this point, so you've got to do something else, right? And so, what are you doing in your brain? You're going, "Holy shit! This is all I know. What am I going to do now?" Right? Talk us through that process.
Yeah. I mean, I still firmly believe the pivot I made. The only one that gets it still is me. I don't know if anybody else really gets it, including my wife and family. I mean, they support me, but I had to find something that was no longer physical labor intensive, right? And I looked at a few things, and I had a wonderful, wonderful friend of mine who has since passed. He was actually a friend of my dad's and older than both myself and my dad, my friend Cy. And he just kept saying to me, I want you to go see my friend. I want you to go see my friend. And he was telling me this for like maybe 6 months to a year. And I was going, yeah, whatever. I'm going to look at this. And the service thing is working well for me right now. I don't have to kill myself. And eventually one day, I had my surgeries, I had my shoulders fixed, and I called Cy up and I said, you know what? I want to go see your friend. I go, you want to tell me what it's about? He goes, no.
So you had no idea at this point who the friend is, really, what the business is. Nothing.
No. The only thing I knew is that, Cy was a retired senior executive in the insurance business. Okay. So you kind of know that if it's his friend, it's probably an associate of some form, right? But I had no idea. I mean, honestly, I got in my car. If you know where Pittsfield, or I don't know, where did I live at the time? I was living in my house, Hancock, Williamstown area. Get in my car and drive to Wellesley, Mass.
Right, it's a bit of a drive.
Not a hop, skip, and a jump from the Berkshires here. No. and I meet this just wonderful man named Dick, just this amazing guy. And to this day, I don't know if I even liked the business, but I sure liked him. And awesome. He was just such a wonderful, wonderful guy. Very similar personality to my friend Cy. And very short story of that's how I ended up in the start of the business I'm kind of currently in now.
Right, but it still was different. So you went into the insurance business from that, and you did that for a while, but you realized that something about it wasn't a perfect fit. And I think I want to bring this up because in my episodes on pivoting, I talked about, how when you decide to make a pivot, you decide which direction you're going. Don't assume that direction's where you're going to end up. That direction, more often than not, is a road to where you're going to end up. So as you're going down that road, you're going to learn more, you're going to experience more, and it may take you in different directions, which is kind of what happened to you. So you go into insurance, you're there for a while, but you realize it's not quite a perfect fit. So how did you decide to transition from that to financial planning, which I know is your happy place? You finally found the sweet spot. You're really happy doing it. I want the listeners to know that right up front. But how did, you told me once that it's kind of a natural progression to go from selling insurance to financial planning, but I don't think most people would know that. So what happened that made you go, okay, this isn't really right. I want to move to something else?
Well, yeah, quick funny story, I guess, and it goes back to everybody that got me involved. Cy, who saw me run an electronics business for many years, assumed I was a great sales guy. And clearly, Dick, that I met, hired me because Cy thought I was a great sales guy. And I take a lot of pride in saying this. I ran that electronics business for I don't know how many years. I mean, it was 30 total, but the retail side of it was probably closer to 15, 20. But I take a lot of pride in saying I never sold anybody anything.
Mm-hmm.
People would come in, you would educate them on speakers and quality and let them listen to them. Whether if it was a TV, you explain to them the differences in whatever TVs they were looking at, and then they would watch them, and you could make adjustments, and they would make a purchase. I don't sell anything to this
No,
day.
I think back in Pittsfield Radio, it was the coffee and the hang that did more to sell things than anything else, right?
The coffee, the worst damn coffee ever, too. But it did sell. It was awesome.
So you discovered that sales is not your thing. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I discovered that the way I sold through education wasn't selling.
Right.
Because the one thing you learn quickly when you're learning the insurance business is that you actually have to sell the product, not hard sell the product, but you have to sell the product.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people just knock on your door and say, hey man, I need a life and disability policy. I mean, it rarely does happen. So granted, also I have a job now that doesn't pay me until you sell something.
Right.
So there's no income. So explain that to your wife. And of course, anybody that does do this, like I did, clearly, no matter how genius your idea is, because we all think we're geniuses when we make these thought processes and come to a conclusion that, hey, this is where I'm going.
Right.
This is a smart move for me. Please make sure if you're married, you have your spouse's consent to go take a job that doesn't pay.
All right, we are not going there, people. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep you off of that. But.
Yeah, but I mean, it's when you're going to jump off, make sure you're. So, and I knew that, but it was through that process of, you go through all your training and the educational aspects and the product aspects, and you learn everything, and you're like, hey, this is kind of cool. I get this.
Okay.
And then you start going to talk to people, and they're looking at you like, I don't know, your ears fell off, or your eyes are glued in the center of your forehead or something.
Right.
It's like, wow. I mean, am I that bad at this, or what?
Well, look, I can relate. I got the same problem. I have to sell myself as a coach. My coaching business, and I'm very into helping people, but sales is not something I'm great at. So I get it. It's a challenge. It's a different world, right?
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, in the environment I was in, which I was what they called a captured insurance agent, right? I was directly under a major insurance company.
Okay.
So in that business, you do start by selling insurance, whether it's life or disability or long-term care or any of those peripheral products. They allow you to do healthcare and stuff, even though it's not their product. And they want you to do that for whatever, a few years. And then to round that process out, as you're moving forward in your career, then you're moving forward with getting some securities licenses. Not necessarily an advisory license, but there's different licenses as you move through FINRA, if that's the path you're taking. You get your securities licenses, so maybe you can do mutual funds and 401k plans and things like that. And then the next level above that, of course, is moving to the advisory license, a fee for service, which is a little different than the other. And for me, that made a lot of sense, because to me, that was, again, not selling. It was educating, and people could make the right decision.
So, right on track with my thing. Sorry to interrupt, but right on track with my thing about pivoting is you take your experiences and you frame them in the broadest sense possible. Like I used an example in one of my shows of, if you were in management, then you've dealt with a lot of different kinds of people in your life, so you know something about human behavior. So see your skills in a broader perspective and use them in your next pivot, which is exactly what you're talking about right here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you go into financial planning, and of course, in both these endeavors, we're going to go back to what you said a minute ago. I don't want to get into the how do you tell your wife part, but you're not making much money, and it's a long slog at first to get it going, to get your name out there, to bring in clients, to have people. I know what that long slog is like. It's tough. And it's hard to stay focused at times. It's hard to keep believing in yourself because at first you're not getting a lot of good feedback. Good feedback being clients showing up, right? So what did you do to keep yourself focused and also to keep your spirits up during that period?
I got to be honest with you. I don't know how I did it because there were so many bad days. Where you line up meetings and then every meeting cancels. You have people fill out the paperwork and you get them approved, and then we changed our minds.
Yeah,
I mean it's a grueling business.
Yeah.
And then you have your successes, which in my case carried me a long way. So when you did the right thing and the client got it, understood it, those were the moments, I guess, that would carry you forward through the 1, 2, or 5 or 10 bad experiences. At least you hope. I mean, I can tell you now, 10 or 12 years I've been doing this. And a few years back, when I was still with that major insurer, 4 or 5 years ago, we had 2 or 3 kids come in right out of college. Smart kids, master's degree, one of them, bachelor's, the other one, bright kids. And, another generation, they're younger. They couldn't take the no's. All of them left within 30 to 60 days.
Oh, that's tough.
They could not understand people saying no to them. It wasn't that they weren't doing a good job. They were doing a great job.
Right.
But, I think the age we're at, right, we got no'd a lot more.
Yeah. we have scars and thicker skin, right?
Yeah. We ate some dirt.
Yep.
So, it's really interesting. But, if you've made the decision to do this, and you are 100% committed, because I think that's the minimum you need to be committed.
Right.
Then you got to walk the walk, right? You got to go it. I mean, and you've got to do whatever you got to do to push yourself through, whatever you got to drink in the morning or whatever you got to do before you go to bed at night. And you got to know there's going to be some dark days. I mean, I can tell you, I went 6 or 7 months without $1.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what this is, and what keeps me going in part is the money I invested in it. Do you know what I mean? Like you say 100%. I say you've got to be all in. You got to be all in. You got to believe. If you don't believe, nobody else is going to believe, right? And so you got to be all in. You got to set yourself up to be a pro. If you have to invest more money to do that, and you can invest the money, great. But you really just got to. If you're gonna take the risk all. 100%, like you said, just really go for it.
Yeah.
But it is tough. I understand. So, but the good news is you made it through that period, and you now have a pretty good business, right? You're very happy.
We have a great business. We're out from under the major insurer. We run our own brokerage and I don't want to say brokerage. I guess brokerage and investment advisory firm.
Right.
We have a lot of fun. We enjoy ourselves. Our clients like us. We're open. We're honest. We educate them. They make the ultimate decisions. It's very rewarding. It's very fulfilling. And it's kind of comical that, now that you're not selling insurance, but people come in and, we intake them and we do a full financial background on them and set them all up with the data they provided. And you go, hey man, you're married, you got a house, you got 2 kids, what are you going to do if something bad happens? Like, oh, you tell me I need some life insurance? Oh, you really should consider it.
So you're doing it anyway.
Oh, sure. Where do I sign up? I mean, now there's no effort because they're looking at you in a different light.
Sure. Right.
Because you're not trying to, you're not trying to sell something to them, right? I mean,
you're an advisor.
You're an advisor.
It's a big difference, salesman and advisor, in their psychologically in their mind, right?
Correct. And it's a more, now it's more natural, especially for me, because I don't want to sell you anything. I mean, I just not my game. So it's pretty neat, and we're really happy. I have a wonderful partner, Corey, and he's a bit younger than me, but incredibly passionate for this field, and we really enjoy ourselves here.
And again, that's www.shirewealth.com. That's Shire, SHIRE, wealth.com. You can find more about Alex and Corey and their business by visiting there. I've got one last question. We've been running a bit long, but that's cool because this is a very interesting conversation. Well, first, I want to just highlight for you. I know that as a former small business owner, you're very passionate about helping people with small businesses. So you're very passionate about advising people financially with their small businesses. And I just want to throw that plug in because you're not just someone who works with individuals and families, but you help small businesses, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Excellent. So finally, before we end today, because you've now made several pivots, I'm wondering if for those who are listening who are considering a pivot, because I think the hardest phase is the considering the pivot. Do I need a pivot? Should I pivot? And those who are considering a pivot, who need to pivot or who have to pivot, what advice do you have for them? I mean, looking back, what do you wish you knew now then that you know now?
So I think it's incredibly important to know yourself and know yourself well, because as I look back, I never realized I wasn't good at selling. I was good at educating people to motivate them to purchase something that they chose to purchase.
That's really
so. You really need to, you need to know yourself, your commitment level and drive to succeed, I think, have to be exceptionally high, because it's not necessarily smooth. It could be bumpy. So I think those are probably two of the things I look back at and wish I had maybe realized. I thought I would be instantly successful, and I wasn't. So those are two things I think that are pretty important.
Well, I think know yourself is really key, because you can't fake it. I mean, people say fake it till you make it, but I think that's a terrible saying, because I think, maybe you can take something you're skilled at and maybe you're not 100% excellent at it yet and fake it a little bit. But, you can find yourself in a profession you really just hate and isn't a good fit, and you're not going to succeed. And even if you do succeed, you're going to be miserable. So if you're going to make that pivot, you really got to take some time first to say, who am I? What's my skills? What do I do? What do I love? What do I hate? I gave in my episode on pivoting after 50, I said, when I did it, I was in such a fog, the thick fog of I could not figure out what the hell to do. Nothing was working. So I stepped back and redid it. I said, I remembered in my former career, if anybody came to me with an idea, I'd require that we first sit down and come up with criteria. Not just go, hey, that's a great idea, let's do it. But let's game it out. Let's look at what's the purpose? What's it going to serve? What are the long-term ramifications? What is the downside of this, right? And so I started to go, why am I not approaching my own pivot the same way? And so I started to make a bunch of lists. And the list I started with in my case was what I'm absolutely not willing to put up with ever again. So I wanted a list that said, what do I want my day to look like, my typical day? I made a whole bunch of lists in different ways. And eventually those lists helped me focus to where I wanted to be. And I wanted to be a small business owner. That's what it helped me finally ultimately see, and what kind of small business owner I would be. But I had to start with these lists. And one of them was, what do I not want to do? And if you just go with what you don't want to do, that's the first step in knowing yourself in terms of what's going to work going forward, and so I'm really grateful that you brought that up. Alex, this has been a great show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, had a fun time. Thank you.
I hope we can get you back sometime and talk about money, because I think we could all use some advice about money. But in the meantime, thank you very much for being with us today. Everybody, if you've enjoyed this, as always, please hit the like or subscribe button so you can get notified every time I drop a new show. I want to offer you all one new thing. If you have ideas of a show or a topic that you would like me to do, I want to invite you to please write me. Send me an email. It's matt@mattbrookscoaching.com. Simple, matt@mattbrookscoaching.com. Send me an email. If it's a great idea, I will definitely consider it and go with it. In the meantime, be well, and I'll catch you next time on the Barrier Busting Podcast.